Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to the 10th edition of the Road to Ignite Leadership Talk Series. IEEE Let's Talk, together with IEEE Young Professionals Sri Lanka, is proud to organize this event with 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 Private Limited as our ecosystem partner. I'm 𝐀𝐬𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 𝐾𝐬𝐜, and I'll be a moderator for this session. Tonight's event is taking place live from 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 headquarters, and we are thrilled to dive into an insightful conversation on leadership, innovation, and purposeful impact with the distinguished speaker whose journey embodies those values. Please join me in welcoming Ms. 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 𝐾𝐬𝐜, co-founder and CEO of 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 Private Limited, a Swedish Sri Lankan technology leader who builds high-performance global software teams and innovative technology solutions. Ms. 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 hails from Sweden with an engineering background focused on product development. While at Microsoft Sweden, she recognized the Nordic tech talent gap and set out to build international delivery capabilities. Since relocating to Sri Lanka in 2016, she has grown 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑡𝑖c into a team of 100+ professionals, serving Swedish and global clients, and is known for fostering an inclusive, people-centric culture that champions policies like equal parental values. Welcome, Ms. 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎. To begin, could you tell our audience how your journey unfolded, from starting in tech leadership and business development in Sweden to founding 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑡𝑖c here in Sri Lanka? What was the defining moment that made you take this entrepreneurial leap and set your vision in motion?
So, where do we start? Well, I can start with, I've always been a bit of a, obsessive problem solver. When I see something that is not working ideally or like something that is a bit off, I do get the tendency to just try to fix it. And also from an early age, having an entrepreneurial kind of spirit in me, trying to sell things to people, whether they like it or not. Quite early on, I also understood that I had a big passion for science in various forms. I really wanted to understand how things actually work do something with that knowledge. So for my studies, I studied or have an education in. I have a master's in mechanical engineering from the start, focused on product development and design. So during my studies, I had most of my focus was on physical products, typical mechanical engineering and building actual physical products. But I had some parts of my education that was also related to IT and programming. And there I quite quickly gained had an interest to this, because basically what I like about software engineering is that quite quickly you can build quite big things and impactful things without actually having to go through all of the processes that are needed to build a physical product. So I took an instant liking to software engineering in terms of building products and building solutions quickly, and that can have a big impact. But so after my studies, I joined Microsoft in Sweden, and I had a role as a partner sales executive, which basically means that I'm driving sales of Microsoft solutions through the partner ecosystem in Sweden. So partners of Microsoft are both product companies who are building their solutions on Microsoft technologies, but also consultancy companies, different kind of companies who are in different ways reselling Microsoft solutions. What I saw with these companies that I worked with is that they all had a challenge of finding the kind of tech competency that they needed for their projects and to be able to grow their businesses. In Sweden and in the Nordic region, we have for a quite long time had a bit of a talent gap, where we basically are quite successful at producing these large tech companies. A few recent examples is Spotify, for you who like to listen to music. These days in the AI era, we have Lovable as one of the more recent examples of a success story in tech. That originates from Sweden. And Sweden is a very small country. We have 10 million inhabitants in Sweden. So we have always had to rely on tech talent from outside of Sweden to be able to meet the demand that we're having. So I saw this gap in the market when working with these partners of Microsoft. And yeah, the idea of like, okay, where in the world can I find developers, the tech talent that can actually help these companies in their growth journey and not having the competency be one of their blockers to growth. That is where that idea basically came to life.
That's great. Starting from a partner sales executive to building your way into Sri Lanka and starting a tech startup is quite a gap, and it's quite a huge leap that you've taken. Really impressive. And when 𝐴𝑛𝑡𝑒 began, how did you build your trust with early international clients, especially in the Nordic market, to choose a new cross-border startup for their core software needs?
It's a good question, and I think this is like in any kind of business, trust, like building trust with your customers is really important. But when you're selling offshore services also, it becomes extra important because, you know, your customers are in a different part of the world and we're selling services from here. And for many customers, it's a bit of a black box. They don't know like what is happening, like, you know, where the services are getting delivered. And that is one of the challenges with selling offshore that you know, you have to sort of overcome to be, you know, a successful offshore partner or company. But I would say that there are two things in like building trust in this kind of setup that is like, you know, regardless if it's about like building trust with a colleague or a boss or your customer, it's, you know, if you have these two things, you can build trust with anyone. And those would be, you need to have the speed, like with the speed, we actually are able to reduce the perceived distance between us. Like if we have a request or, you know, something coming from our customers and we can be quick to respond to that, that sets a tone as like, you know, they can rely on us for their different questions and needs. And to the reliability. So basically being able to deliver on our promises, to make sure that we can actually like say what we are saying that we can, and always just like sticking to our commitments. Those are the two things that are needed to build trust, and that will then in the later stages be able to, you know, turn into referrals and further business growth. So yeah, trust is like, you know, regardless what you're working on, like, you know, making sure that you achieve that and build on that, it's going to be extremely important.
Trust and reliability.
Yes, and speed and reliability.
And speed, exactly. Yeah. Forming onto new bonds that helps you further upskill you.
Yeah, and I would say like, especially in these, in the software engineering markets, like, you know, speed is everything, like especially these days, but, you know, it's always been the case that the quicker that you can deliver to the market, you know, the higher chance you actually have to survive in a very competitive field. So with that, if you're going to be a vendor in that kind of market, you have to show that you can also deliver on that speed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you've traveled multiple countries before as well. And what was the pivotal moment that convinced you that Sri Lanka was the ideal location for founding 𝐴𝑛𝑡𝑒 in 2017?
So I wish that I could say that we did like a big, you know, global analysis of these are the different locations where we can go and set up this kind of business, and then we, you know, rationally decided on Sri Lanka. That's not the case. We actually came here for vacation. That is how we first ended up in Sri Lanka. That was in 2015. At that point, we didn't know pretty much like anything about Sri Lanka and the tech scene or anything like that. We had heard about the surfing, the elephants, the beautiful nature, the culture, and got recommended to come here for, you know, for a nice holiday. And so we came here, and basically what we instantly liked is the sense of opportunity and potential that we saw here. A lot of people that we met had this like entrepreneurial kind of spirit where they wanted to build something better and you know, bigger, and where we saw a lot of good potential for actually like setting up a business here and like being able to build on that potential that we saw. So it's a bit of a coincidence that we ended up here, but it has turned out to be a really, great decision that we actually came here and not into any other place that we could have ended up in.
Absolutely. And also, given that even the people who live in the country find quite hard to create a startup and upscale it. You came from a foreign country and you built a startup here. What were the first few challenges that you faced that has now molded you into the person that you are?
So I would always say that like our biggest challenge has always been to find furniture actually in Sri Lanka. No, but like so obviously like building a startup wherever you are is super tough. You will have like 5 million new problems to solve, and so many different things that you have to learn and just like navigate. Definitely coming to a new country and trying to navigate there compared to like in your home country, there are some other challenges in that. We have from the start been working with this company secretary kind of company that has supported us in a lot of the messy questions like taxes and regulations and making sure that we do everything like by the book. So that I would say like has been a massive help. But otherwise, I really don't think that it matters where you're setting up your shop. You will have to learn everything about setting up shop in that place, and it doesn't matter if it's in your home country or somewhere else. There will be a lot of like learnings that you have to do.
And you said that you're obsessed with creating the optimal conditions for great ideas to translate into spot-on software solutions. That's a very powerful mindset, and especially in a tech company. Can you share how you intentionally shape those conditions at 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 and from team processes to client collaboration, so that promising ideas don't just stay ideas, but also inevitably become real impact?
Also, like in the software industry, we have seen like so many huge projects fail, miserably. And often it's not that like, we had the wrong people, like the competency of the people was wrong, or that, that we didn't have like a valid problem to fix, or that like, that this problem shouldn't be fixed. Usually, like what happens is that the conditions and the context around this project are just like so bad that, even if we have like the right people who want to do a good job, they are not able to actually build what we should be building. So in 𝐴𝑛𝑡𝑖c, we are putting a lot of effort and investment into like how do we actually enable the collaboration that needs to happen between our customer teams in Sweden or in the Nordic region and the teams here in Sri Lanka. Because a lot of what goes wrong in software projects really comes down to like, okay, have we communicated enough about like what is the problem that we're actually trying to fix here, or have we giving the people in the project enough context for what we're doing here, or do we have a clear target on where we are all heading? So there are a lot of ways that the software project can go wrong, and what we do and support our customers with a lot is like consulting on how do we create this context where the right discussions can happen, where the right information gets flooded through the project group, and where we set clear targets and aims for the things that we're trying to do, and so on. So really like minding a lot about like not just what we deliver, but also how we collaborate and how we deliver things towards our customers.
I believe your nature to be a problem solver has also quite helped you in figuring this out.
In this field, like software engineering, there are a lot of problems to fix. So that is the good news for people who likes to solve problems. It's a good industry to be in.
Absolutely. And to identify a great company, the company should not only be able to deliver the services or products as fast as possible and also gain the trust, but also on how they retain their employee, how much trust the company builds between them and the employees, and how are they able to navigate the employees better. And in terms of 𝐴𝑛𝑡𝑖c, it was amongst Sri Lanka's first tech sector to offer 84-day equitable paid parental leave for both parents, mums and dads. And what inspired this policy, and how has it affected your teams and workplace culture here?
So I'm a firm believer in that if we're gonna actually achieve better equality in different sectors ahead, we actually have to change the structures that are actually like unequal by nature and that are upholding the unequal structures that we're having. So in 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 when we started the business, we had 84 days of parental leave for mothers, which is set by the law. And then for fathers, I think we had 5 days of parental leave, which was pretty much like the standard in the industry back then, and to a large extent is still today. And how we actually came up with this equal parental leave policy actually was when during the COVID times, I had been to Sweden for a business trip, and I came back and I was stuck in one of these quarantine hotels. So by myself for 2 weeks in a small hotel room and doing a lot of pacing around the room just to stay sane. And at that point, for some reason, it just hit me that how can we who are a company who wants to actually work for a better equality in this sector have such unequal terms when it comes to parental leave policies. And at that point, I just pitched the idea to my senior management group that let's actually make sure that we have equal parental leave for both mothers and fathers, so that it is actually possible, even just possible for both the mother and the father to take the same kind of responsibility for the children. Yeah, the senior management group agreed, and we were able to roll it out. And I think this is something that has an important, it is important for various reasons, both for the symbolic value of showing that having kids, having a family, it is a responsibility or a shared responsibility for both mothers and fathers. So with that, the terms of how we actually take that responsibility should be equal, but also just in reality enabling fathers to also take that kind of time off, so that it doesn't fall on the mother to take more time away from their careers, and with that having a higher likelihood of actually falling behind in their careers while having a family. And it is something full honesty, it is something that is costly. We are actually taking people, giving them full paid leave for 4 months that we don't have to give. And it is directly impacting our profitability as a company. But it is something that we believe is important to actually be able to see some kind of a change in the quality of the market ahead.
And how has this affected the company's employee retainment percentage? And
well, I would say it's hard to say how much one specific thing impacts that, but I think it really ties into our strive to be the best employer in Sri Lanka at a whole, where we do really want to make sure that people can have a solid career, they can do a lot, and have a successful career, while also having support for a healthy and balanced personal life and family life as well.
That's one of the great sustainability practices that I've seen a company taken up and own. Even though it costs them quite a bit of financial trouble, they still take it up, and that's quite amazing. And often switching between writing code and working on the creative side, like designing SVGs and digital assets for organizational content. How important is it for modern developers at 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 to possess hybrid skills, like understanding the UI UX design or business logic for that matter, versus being strictly specialized in one single tech stack?
So I definitely believe in being specialized and having your own set of expertise that you bring to the table. But with that said, I think engineers should always have the mindset that technologies and frameworks and languages that are the tools that we have to work with, and not getting limited to a too narrow set of tools. So I always recommend to that, like, when you're building your CV, regardless of what it is, make sure that, like, you have a variety of tools that you show that, like, I can solve problems with these or those kind of tools, and I have like a specialized expertise in this specific area. I think definitely, like, with the advancement of AI, this becomes even more important to have a role that can adapt to what organizations, what different companies need in terms of skills and knowledge, and not getting too stuck on, like, this is my specific specialization and this is where I will be building my entire career on. So yeah, really thinking of, like, what is it that I'm actually bringing to the table in terms of skill set and expertise, but also making sure that, like, you are coming into an organization to help them solve their problems and fix their problems, and whatever, like, technologies or tools that you're using for that, those are still just the tools that we can actually, like, use and adapt depending on what is right for that specific context or situation.
Great. And 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 is consistently recognized as a great place to work. And how do you balance the pressure of driving high-performance technical results for clients with ensuring your team has a genuine, healthy work-life balance?
So for me, I would say, like, those actually goes very much hand in hand. Like, what we tend to see when we're working very long hours, when we focus on the quantity of what we do, is that the quality tends to start to deteriorate. When we are rushed, when we have too many projects, too many deadlines to worry about, we tend to do things in suboptimal ways. We start over-engineering things. We start making things more complicated than what they need to be. Yeah, we basically, like, start reducing the quality and the craftsmanship in what we're doing. So for us, by investing in making sure that people can have a solid work-life balance, that they can get, have a refreshed mind when they come to work in the morning, and where they have that creative space and freedom to actually, like, think and solve problems in a better way, it directly translates into better services towards our customers and the problems that we're trying to fix.
That's quite nice to hear. And leading an international technology organization requires both energy and resilience. And how do you personally balance leadership responsibilities with life outside of your work? And what advice would you give young professionals striving to find that balance early in their careers? Because students currently, they are, whatever they go into, they constantly keep going into work-life balance. Right now, I believe that you should personally focus on your work and your life comes next. So what is your take on that, and what advice would you give to the young professionals to striving to find that balance in early years?
So apart from my job, I'm right now a mother of 3 as well. So I know all too well that it's not really about, like, finding balance, but more like a constant struggle to make everything go together. But yeah, I think it's a lot about just, like, being intentional about what you're prioritizing. There is a time where you have actually, like, the possibility to fully invest on building your career, building your competency, getting as much experience under your hood as possible, learning, building networks, really, like, just diving into your career and focusing on that, investing in yourself. If that is what you want to do, then, like, go ahead and do that. But then at other points of your life, maybe when you're starting a family, or when you're just having other things in life that that requires your attention, at that time you might actually need to lower your ambitions when it comes to work or career to be able to have more focus for other things in life. And I think that's something that is important to remember, that there will be different times in your life and during your career where you will have to shift focus, and that is, like, fully fine as well, because it's easy to think that, like, at every stage of your life you have to have full focus on every part of your life, and it's just simply not possible. So yeah, being intentional and really thinking of like, okay, at this stage in my life, what do I actually really want to invest in? What do I want to spend my time on? And also being okay then with, making the trade-offs on the things that you're choosing not to focus on at that moment.
Amazing. And most of the young entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs here, they primarily they are conflicted between whether they should serve their product or the service in a domestic market, or would they go for a global outreach. For an example here, Uber and Amazon, when they started off, they looked at a global problem and they provided the solution. They did not limit themselves to a specific country and was like, this is how much I can do and this is how much we can serve. They looked at it as a global perspective and they expanded their product, leading into a huge company right now. It is right now. And what would you say to the young entrepreneurs in this generation who are contemplating between whether they should maximize their product or the service in the domestic market, or they start with the global outreach, expand it and upscale it by networking and also connecting with more people? What is your take on that?
So it's a good question. I think there both like Sweden and Sri Lanka have some similarities. So Sweden is a very small country. We have 10 million people. Sri Lanka have about like the double, but it's very small markets, right? Like it's not like the US where we have like a huge addressable market, like in your home turf, so to say. So in Sweden, I would say like the mindset for most organizations is that they start in Sweden, they launch, they pilot their services in Sweden and make sure that it's really like, that you validate the product offering there. But you always have the mindset that like once it's validated, we will then go to this market and that market. So from very early on, you have like an intention that like, Sweden is just the starting point. And I think like the same should definitely be applied for Sri Lanka as well. Sri Lanka is a great like starting point for like getting the product off the ground and like really validating that this product works, it's solid. But then there should always be that thinking of what is the next market? Like when we know that it works here, what will be markets 2 or 3 or 4 for us? So that from the start we can actually build it with a bit bigger perspective and plans than just focusing on the local needs.
Absolutely. And what are the key skills or knowledge that the young entrepreneurs should look into and gain before they delve into thinking of a global outreach or expanding the product into an international market? So what I've seen here is that Sri Lanka has a huge upscale potential for their products over here. The tech entrepreneur, the young students here, the projects that they deliver through universities and colleges and schools is very interesting. And a few of those products do have a huge international potential to reach to have a global outreach. But what they lack is the necessary knowledge or the skill set to apply them, to get them out. So what skill set or knowledge would you recommend that we should look into or have?
So I think like, it really comes down to, like finding what is the problem that we're actually fixing and like, for who are we fixing that problem. And it is like, when we talk about like going international with the product, it is actually really, really hard because in any kind of country, we would have our own set of like, both like legal context to adhere to, but also of course like the, common practices, like what we used to, how we were used to working. With technology and like this software, it is a bit easier to some extent because a lot of the software that we're using today is quite global and we're quite used to like the same kind of structures in software. So that helps when we're actually going international with a product like that. But we really have to understand, so like, if Middle East is your like next target, like, after Sri Lanka, I want to go to the Middle East and launch it there, you really have to be there and understand, like, okay, so a restaurant in that market, how are they operating? Are they even using the same kind of, other tools that we're using here? Can we assume that those behaviors are the same as we're having here? Or how will we need to adapt this product to actually like fix their specific problems? So I think it's really just about like, really really understanding like what is the problem that I'm fixing and for who, and making sure that like then that gets through in your product and in your communication.
I believe those are a few great pointers that the audience here can use. And we would also love to hear from our audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand and do ask Anna here. We're open to questions and anything in relation to leadership, entrepreneurship, or even technology that you might need to get an advice on or clearance, you're welcome to ask. Even students who might have an idea on developing their startup, bringing on their own startup from their college into university into
Hi, Ms. Anna. So I have a small question. This might be a very diabolical question, but imagine that I'm starting a startup tomorrow. The current situation, as you know now, the situation is not the same as when you started your company here. So is there any specific advice that you want to give us, or me specifically, if I'm starting a company, if I'm starting a startup tomorrow, like what are the main things that I should focus on with the current situation? The thing is, I don't have a lot of infrastructure. I don't have someone to invest a lot on my startup. So is there something that I can do specifically with the skill set that I have, that I can invest it on the startup that I'm starting up tomorrow or on a day in the coming up days? Is there something that you can give an advice based on the current situation, the current worldwide situation?
So what kind of startup is it that you're thinking of?
Maybe a tech startup also?
Tech startup, okay. So I would say like if we just take today compared to like a couple of years ago, I would say it's so much easier today to prototype, building like, a very like refined version of like, the software that you're planning to build in actually like just hours, days. So when you are at the stage where like you have the idea that this is what I want to build and this is like the customers that I want to sell it to, build the early prototype and go and talk with those potential customers as early as possible and say like, hey, like, can I just show you something and get your feedback on it? I'm still working on like building the first version, and I would love to have you being a part of it, because that will really help you to early on get feedback on what you're planning to build, and nudge you in the right direction. And ideally, it will also land you the first customers, because they will see what you're building. They will feed in like, this is what we need. I want to have it integrated with this as well. And with that, you might actually have your first customer there, like as a part of that early test group, so to say. So I would say like, prototype a lot and like get your potential customers involved as early as possible.
And thank you for that wonderful answer. And I have a small follow-up question for you as well. Now, so hypothetically, imagine that I'm not starting it alone. If I'm starting with someone else, imagine I'm going for a partnership, maybe for an investor. Is there any advice that you can give that there is, for an example, is there any risk of going with a partner? Or would you say that in situation in 2026 or moving forward, is it the best to go alone? Or is there any benefits that you get going up with a partner? Or would you say that's a risk?
So, good question. And I would say like, yes, there's always a risk of going with a partner, because the risk is that like, at some point you will realize that you have different visions of what you want to do, what you want to build, or different ambition levels, like how much you actually want to like, go into this, or for various reasons, you might like, come to a point where like, that partnership will require more than it actually gives. With that said, I would say it's very rare that a large and successful company is started with like only one person. Usually it takes at least two to have that kind of to build that kind of like resilience that, like, during a startup phase, it will, sometimes be great, but it will often also be horrible, and you will want to have someone there who is like, when you are like, okay, no, like I'm out, like, this is not worth it. You have that other person who can ideally, like, lift it up and say like, no, but like we can do it like this and this, and they will be able to pull it forward when you are down. So I would say, like, finding a solid partner and, like, really like building it together, and like as much as possible really like talking about, like, okay, what is it that we're building? Are we aligned with what we're trying to do here? I definitely think that is the best approach if you want to like build something substantial.
Thank you, Ms. Anna, for that informative answer. And I'll pass over the mic to someone who has a question.
Hi, so the question I have is, if someone were to start a startup, what would the ideal stage in their life to like start it? Because you could either start it like right after you graduate, even like during your undergraduate, or you could maybe work at some kind of place to get an understanding on like how a startup works, or like how a company works and such. Or if you want to take it further, you could like work at a company or like multiple companies and become like a seasoned veteran in whatever the industry it is, and then start your startup. So out of these few options, what would you recommend for someone to start up?
So tough question, because as you said, like, in the different stages of your career, there will be different pros and cons. I would say, like, one of the really good things about starting a startup when you are young and before you have a lot of experience is, to some extent, like the ignorance that you're having. You think that like problems are gonna be a lot easier to solve than what they actually will be. You have this like enthusiasm that, like, okay, yeah, this will be tough, but we can solve it in some way that, to some extent, like, a bit deteriorates over time. And with more experience also comes more knowledge on, like, okay, so yeah, we will have to deal with these regulations and that, and it's not worth it because of these and these reasons. So starting a startup when you're young, like, you will meet a lot of obstacles that you will have to sort out, but a lot of startups wouldn't also have come to life if that person was a bit more like senior when they came up with the idea. So there are like a lot of benefits with starting young. I think there's also like, a really good time when like you're a bit more like seasoned. Maybe you have had your family and your kids have like, moved out or something like that. And you have a lot of time on your hands because your family life has like, that has slowed down a bit. And you have a wealth of experience and also a network that is, probably like a lot bigger than when you were starting your career. So also that, I think, is a really great time to actually start something. When you have small kids at home, maybe then that is like not the ideal time to start a startup. But otherwise, I would say just go for it.
So I have a confusion at first. So I'm an intern. So I have started a startup last November with my colleagues. So at first we are doing projects, but there was a confusion on doing projects for products and pitching the product like that. So the hard part was now is finding a client. So if it is a project for a product, the hard part was the finding a client. So we are interns, so we don't have that much experience. Just 5 us are interns. So what would you give as advice for a product or a project? And how should I find the client? So
So from your perspective, what are the pros and cons with going project versus going product?
When we doing a product, we should have some experience because we are doing a product and we have to teach it. So it should be a perfect. But in the project, we can say it's our initial project, so we can manage it somehow. Because we have done the project, we done it for free, so it was successful. So that was the process.
So going project versus going product is like the big question in this industry, and a lot of consultancy companies, including ourselves or services-based companies like ourselves, at some point start also building your own product and IP to some extent, and often realize that driving or running a product company and driving a services-based company is very different kind of operations, and ideally shouldn't be mixed. Building products in software today is tough because it's very competitive. There's a lot of different competition, both from these large global players, but also like small niche solutions. With that said, with the evolvement of AI, I do see that there's a new interest for companies to actually take in or get products or SaaS products that are very niche and very specialized for their actual needs. So in the software industry for the last decades, we've had these large, taking in ERP, we've had these large SAP and Microsoft, huge systems that can do everything, but are also too big and clumsy for most organizations, small mid-sized organizations, because they just get flooded with functionality and information that is actually not relevant for this small particular company or organization. So in Sweden, we see a lot today these smaller niched type of software in ERP or HR or CRM or all these different fields that are niche for specific kind of sectors. So for example, in restaurants, you would need to have your specific kind of software to manage those kind of processes. And there's these very refined, nice niche software that are built for that purpose specifically. With AI and how much quicker it is also to prototype and build something and adapt something for a specific company's need, it's even easier to find that build that product that really fits the needs of this specific company that you're targeting. So it is a really hard question, what should you go for? With product companies, again, you really have to understand what is the problem that you're trying to solve. So for these companies that you want to see being your customers at the end, what is it that they are actually struggling with? Is it to be able to run their workflows in an efficient way? Is it to be able to get some kind of data that they're not able to access today? What is it to be able to comply with the regulations that their industry is falling within? What is it that they are struggling with? And how will this software actually solve that problem? Because if you find that, then that is the message that you can also go out with to see hey, would you actually want me to help solve this problem for you? Being able to get your first customers on the hook. Projects and services, that is sort of easy. That is there are always companies who want help with solving their specific things. If you're gonna build a product, you really have to find what is that problem that is also generic enough so that we can sell it to more companies, but specific enough so that they would turn to your solution instead of these big global ones that exist today. Probably just made you more confused, but maybe you can take something from that.
Hi, Miss Anna, it's me again. Yes, so this question is not a very technical question, but a question out of curiosity. If I ask you, what is the hardest thing that you say that for yourself is about being an entrepreneur? And on the other hand, what is the happiest thing that you believe in yourself about being an entrepreneur? So the hardest thing and the happiest thing about being an entrepreneur from your perspective.
So like one of the things about like building a company yourself is that you know, all the good stuff that you have in your company that you recognize yourself, you can feel proud of and be like, you know, oh yes, we built this. But on the other hand, all the bad stuff that, you know, like bad practices and stuff, you also have to, you know, take responsibility of. So it's sort of like, you know, with a company, when you're an entrepreneur building something from the ground up, you sort of like have that, like, you know, endless scope of responsibility of the organization and what happens in there, which is just important to be aware of. That is the curse of a founder or an entrepreneur. But yeah, there are so many great things about being an entrepreneur, especially like, you know, if you actually want to see things happen fast, like, you know, going from idea to like, you know, let's get something done. Like as an entrepreneur, you have, you know, endless possibilities to actually do that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
With the AI automation transferring the tech space, so how is 𝐴𝑛𝑛𝑎 position in the state with the competitive environment?
Yeah, no, so it is a really interesting time to work in software engineering, since with the recent hype of AI, there's a lot of different directions that the industry seems to go in. I think the important thing to, like, you know, as a services-based company like we, the important thing is really to like remember that like we are a company who exists because we can actually like help our customers solve their problems better and easier than what they can solve it themselves. The moment that they can actually, like, you know, turn to an AI or turn to even, like, you know, hiring locally or another vendor, and they can solve this company's problems better, then we are obviously like no longer relevant. But as long as we can actually like help our customers to navigate, like, how do they use AI? How do they now innovate their workflows and their development practices using AI? How do they integrate AI into their services and offerings? As long as we can be that partner for them, we have a huge amount of work still to get done. So it is really important in these kind of, when the industry is shifting like this, to not only like drive the change internally, actually do those like initiatives, do that internal R&D that is needed, but also to make sure that whatever happens inside the organization also gets communicated externally. Because what we do and what we can do is one thing, but what the market perceives that we do and can do also is equally important for us to still be a valid vendor in that kind of shift. So yeah, what we're trying to do is both, of course, like doing a lot of different kind of internal initiatives. We call it AI bets, which are a couple of different initiatives on how we're both using AI internally, but also how we are like different service offerings that we are developing towards our customers. And some being successful, some will probably like not be as successful. But then also focusing a lot on how do we make sure that what we're doing internally is also represented in our external communication. That's also a really important part of the focus at the moment. So what I love seeing is like when we actually become like, you know, a critical part of our customers' like ability to act on business opportunities, so that like basically they would like, when they have a new opportunity, when they need to like maybe change something in the organization, maybe they need to modernize the product that they're building or whatever, they would turn to us as the first option to be like, okay, we don't even really know how to go about this, but can you just like, help us, handle this big, complex and critical project? Like, can you help us with that? That is like when I know that like we're doing something good, and when our engineers are doing something good, when the customers would always turn to us first before they even start like, formulating exactly what it is that they need. And we have quite a lot of like examples like that at the moment, which I'm super happy to see.
Perfect. I believe we've had some fantastic questions today, and I hope that some of you gain knowledge that would help you further in your career ladder. And as we conclude the session, we would like to extend our sincere gratitude to Anna Kalm for sharing her experience, wisdom, and leadership insights with us today. I now invite Ms. Nishara Fernando, Chairperson of IEEE Let's Talk, to present the token of appreciation to Ms. Anna.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Anna, and for an inspiring, thoughtful session. And thank you to our wonderful audience who joined us today. And we hope you walk away with practical ideas and a strong sense of possibility in your own journeys. Stay tuned for our next Road to Ignite session. Until then, keep leading, keep learning, and keep igniting change. Thank you.